So I think I have my highlight for the video today. I didn't get it on camera, but I was just about to set some stuff up and do some sanding on those frames, and a hawk, it came flying into the garage, like full speed, was like 2 feet away from me as I was looking at the ground, grabbing some stuff. I heard like the wings sound flapping, you know, I heard it flying in kind of behind me, and it was going so fast I didn't even see it. And then I turned around because I heard something come in and like try to go through the windows here, which are closed. As I heard it hit the window, I turned around, and I thought it was going to be like a small little like sparrow or something. It was huge. It was like, I don't know, massive. And I can't show you both hands, but it was huge. And I turned around and it flew back the other way, like right out of the garage, and I could tell it was a hawk. But that was crazy. I wonder if that's going to keep happening as it gets nicer outside. There's my highlight. Okay, I don't know how well you can hear me, but this is what I typically look like when I'm using the table saw or sanding my frames, which is what I'm about to do now. So I have all of the frames dried, and the putty on the corners is dry. So now I can go through and sand them all really smooth up to like a 220 grit sandpaper. So this is going to take probably 45 minutes to get through this step. And then I'll cut my side pieces out of the maple that I have sitting here in the wood shop. Let me show you where I'm sanding these things. So I'll bring my extension cord over so I can plug in the sander, and I'm just going to do it on top of our grill, just so it's close to the garage. And I'll just be standing out here sanding for the next half an hour or so. Hopefully it doesn't take that long. All right, nice and smooth. Okay, so last night, after I was trying to make some adjustments on my saw, I cut the back pieces at 45-degree angles for this big frame. And they're not perfect on the frame, but when I went to put the plywood pieces together at the corner, I was using this square, and I checked every single corner, and they were lining up pretty close to perfect with the square. So that was telling me that the frame with the poplar was a little bit off square, which I checked that too, and I could tell one of the corners was a little bit off. So I think the saw is a bit more accurate than it was a couple days ago. So I'm going to try to cut my sidewall pieces with the like maple or elm or whatever this is. I don't remember now. I think it might be, I don't know, I just really can't remember. Along the edge. And I'm going to try to cut this at the 45 and see if I can get all of my side pieces cut and assembled today. And hopefully there aren't too many gaps in the corners. So we're going to try it and see what happens. But I'm a little bit nervous because this wood is a bit more expensive and valuable compared to the plywood or even the poplar. So I'm taking a little bit of a risk, but we're going to have to try it out. And then I had kind of shown this little makeshift cardboard adapter to fit both sides of the saw and then the vacuum hose, and it's working pretty well. At the very least, it's allowing the blade to go down without popping off the back. So I'll have my new vacuum going, and that should help cut down some of the dust. I'm still having to wear my mask because last night it was so cold and it was late in the day. I didn't want to annoy my neighbors. I had the garage door closed, and I could really see how much dust was getting kicked up by the table saw when I was cutting down the frames and evening out the sides of the frame. So I just realized, you know what, it's smarter just to wear the mask as often as I can. You really don't want to be breathing in the fine sawdust from some of these tools. First frame is starting to glue up here. I'm gonna leave it for like 10 minutes or so, and then I'll take the clamp off and air nail it. Sometimes what I'll do is just put the air nails in while the belt clamp is on, but because this is such a small frame, it's kind of hard to do that. So after 10 or 15 minutes, the glue should be strong enough to hold while I put the nails in. I'm happy with the corners. They turned out really nice. Because some of these frames now aren't perfectly square, I'm noticing that there are some little gaps around the edges, but you know, it's not that big of a deal. I can always fill it in with some of the spackling, kind of wood putty type stuff that I have. So that shouldn't be a big deal, but okay, there's only 4 left to go. All right, got the big one all glued up. It's looking good. One of the pieces had a bit of a bow to it, so I just added a clamp to kind of keep it close up against the inside of the frame. But yeah, things are going pretty smooth today. I feel like this is typical. It's like 1 or 2 really rough days followed by at least one pretty smooth, fun, easy day. And that's what today's feeling like so far. So I'm really happy about that. One of the things that's pretty tough about building frames this way is that each one ends up being a little bit different. Part of that is because I haven't really set up my wood shop to allow for repetitive cuts of the same measurement. At some point, I'd like to build a table for my miter saw that has a fence that's attached where I can add marks or clamps. That way I can just run through my lumber and make the same cuts for the side pieces of similar sized frames, for example. But for this right now, I have to cut each individual side custom to fit around whatever the dimensions of the inside of the frame is. And part of the problem right now is that they're not always perfectly square or they're different measurements. So it just adds a lot of extra time into the process, which fortunately I don't really mind those extra minutes, but what I have to do is do a dry fit test first, where I add my belt clamp around my pieces. Once they look like they're close, because what I'll do is I'll cut each piece and then I'll kind of hold them around the frame. And usually I can tell if a piece is a little too long, so I'll go back and trim it. But when I get to a point where it looks okay, I'll throw it in the belt clamp, tighten it, and then just check, you know, both sides to make sure that the fit looks like it's going to be tight enough. And then I can go ahead and glue it up, and then eventually put the nails in the side too. So in case you were wondering, if you plan to build frames this way too, I highly encourage you to always do a dry test run before you actually go to nail or glue your frames together, because there's nothing worse than holding a frame together and it looks like it's going to fit nice and smooth, or it looks like it's going to fit properly, and then finding out later that actually it was off, but now you've glued it or nailed it together. So learn from me through my many mistakes of doing that, and do a dry test run first. All right, so 4 of the frames are all put together. I have to go through and sand them all now on the outer walls. As you can see, some of the boards were a little taller than the other ones, but I can just sand those out and it should be fine. And I also have to sand the outsides and the backs of the frames too, because they're pretty rough. Also, the plywood that I used for a lot of these, if they're painted white like this on the back, they're upcycled from my MFA thesis exhibition. I built this barn structure out of plywood, and when the show was over, Walt Peebles from Michigan State helped me cut them down into panel sizes for paintings. I have a whole stack of them still, and I just wanted to use these instead of those separate pieces like I was talking about earlier. So anyway, if you buy one of these paintings, the frames are also partially made with my thesis work, which is kind of cool. So if you get one that has the white on the back, that's what that means. Then I can go through and shellac all of them in the backyard with some spray shellac that I have. And then once that's dry, I'll do a really light sanding with my mask, of course, before starting the painting process. So I'm hoping that by the end of tomorrow, they'll be pretty close to being dry and finished all the way. That way Friday morning, I can photograph all of them and try to hurry up and get them up on my online shop. So that's where we're at right now. It is currently about 1:20. I've got a couple of really good hours left in the day before things start to pick up a bit more. So I'm getting to that point where a lot of the time is just gonna have to be waiting for things to dry. So I wanna get the sanding done now, that way the rest of the day can be used for the shellac to dry. I forgot that after I initially sand them with the 60 grit sandpaper that I had to fill my nail holes. So I'm doing that now with my spackle. And I'm also adding a thin line of it between two main pieces of the frame. That way if there's any gaps, they're sealed. It also gives the frame a nice handmade touch that I really enjoy too. All right, so I've been out here for the past hour or so. It's about 4 o'clock, and I just finished sanding all of the frames. I brought the air compressor out here so I could just blow the dust off as I was sanding that spackle in the corners there. It creates quite a bit of dust. So to see what I'm doing, I just occasionally will spray the frame with some air. Now what I'm gonna do is set up a couple pieces of MDF back along the canoe and spray them all with shellac, and then I'll be done for today with these frames. So it's been a good day. All right, the shellac stage is done. Now I can let these dry for a while. I might come back out in a little bit once they're dry and flip them over and spray the backs. I'm hoping that later today I can start to spray that first layer of color on these. All right, all of the frames are painted. I'm almost done building the last small one, since one of these is not going to work for this grouping. Two of the colors are actually different. These two are a different color than this. You can see it's a little bit darker, so I wanted to try both and see which one I like better. All right, so it is the morning of Thursday, April 27th. That means I have a little more than 24 hours to finish my frames. I have a little bit of work left to do on painting them today. I have to actually frame the egg tempera paintings and cradle the backs of them, so that's going to take some time. Then I have to install the paintings in the frames, document them, create the listings on my website, and list them for sale before 3 o'clock tomorrow. I'm hoping to also maybe put together a brief newsletter. That way my email list subscribers also are aware of this sale. And yeah, so I'm feeling pretty good about that list of things that I have to get done today. I also have to teach this afternoon. We're coming up on our our last full week of class next week. But I'm kind of in a rough mood at the moment because the Milwaukee Bucks were just eliminated from the playoffs in round 1 by the 8th seed Miami Heat. I don't watch the games because we don't have a way to watch them live, but I typically will just check the stats as they're coming in online. So I was following along on my phone last night, and again, same thing happened as game 4, where the Bucks were up like 12 points and just totally lost the lead, lost momentum, and then lost the game, and now they're out of the playoffs. So it's just one of these moments where you feel like all season long, you never think they're going to get out in the first round of the playoffs, and then they do, and you're just like, what is happening? You know, how did this happen? But anyways, so it's just a weird feeling this morning. And the nice thing, though, is that it's really nice outside. I just picked up an Amazon package that just came in. I went ahead and bought one of these digital gauges, angle gauges and levels. So I'm hoping this can help me fix some of the problems I'm having with my miter saw. And I debated a couple nights ago on if I should buy some of these tools. I also have a machinist square coming in soon. And I figured, you know, this is probably not going to be the last time I have this issue with a miter saw or with any of my tools. And the faster I can get them calibrated and up and running properly again, the better. So I went ahead and just bought some of these tools. So I'm going to get back to work and enjoy this nice weather outside. I ended up using a flat enamel paint versus a satin, and I really like how they turned out. I think the flat makes them feel a little bit darker and more even as a surface. What I started to do is experiment on the piece that is not going to fit any of my paintings, and with some steel wool I just went through and kind of burnished the paint and gave it a bit of a weathered antique kind of look and feel. So I'll definitely end up doing this with the other ones, and I think it'll turn out really nice to see them together with that weathered look. I think it really fits the painting style. Something I think I wish I would have done instead of the red maybe is more of an ochre color, but you know, I wanted to see what the red looked like, and for the most part it seems like it's turning out okay. I think the red in some areas on this frame maybe should have been painted a little bit thicker, but that's okay. Or if the edges were a bit more rounded over, because you can see the wood almost starting to show through on this one a little bit. And then here's the last frame that's all shellacked and ready to be painted. I'm trying to decide if I want to go with white or black. I think just to keep the set cohesive, I'll probably end up going with black, just so that way they're all the same. I ended up making a mistake yesterday, and I was so caught up in the red and then the black, I ended up accidentally painting the big frame red and black, totally forgetting that this was going to be white. So I have my white enamel paint here, and I'll be spraying, probably sanding this down a little bit, and then respraying it today with the white. I think it'll be okay if some of the red is showing through, but I definitely need to try to get rid of some of the black that I had painted on by accident. So that's what I'm doing right now, and I just wanted to give you a quick update on how the frames were turning out. All right, we got the second coat of white on the big frame. I think it's gonna turn out okay still. And then we've got the one and only coat of the flat black over on this one, which you can see is already starting to cure and dry. So I'm hoping by tomorrow morning I can finalize some of those finishing touches on this frame. These frames I think are all done. I just have to commit to whatever size spacer or like cradled back I'm gonna use for the backs of the paintings, because right now they're still a little bit tall, so the paintings stick up just a hair above the frame, and I don't particularly like that because they just have a white edge and it's very noticeable from the side. So I'm either gonna sand those little pieces down or try to cut a thinner type of trim to then put behind the paintings. And then I can glue those together and drill my holes in the back of the frames, and then figure out how I want to wire the backs. Because right now they're just a solid piece of wood. But I think the frames turned out really nice. They have a really nice sheen to them. They've been waxed with Dorland's wax medium and a few colors to give it that sort of chalky, dusty look. And I'm really happy with how that broke the surface and created more of an organic quality to the frames. The one thing that was a bit of a surprise was how much of the wood ended up peeking through instead of just the red paint. So I'll have to maybe experiment with some other types of paint to use under either the black enamel or a different kind of paint. So, but overall, I'm really happy with how they look in the frames. I think they turned out really, really nice, and I'm excited to share them with people, and hopefully they get picked up and go to new homes. So we'll see. Well, I just found some scrap wood that was a little bit thinner than these pieces of hardwood from frame building, and now I cut the two little pieces as little spacers in the frame, and I can just set the painting on top, and they're pretty much the exact height of the front of the frame. They don't stick up at all, which is nice. They're pretty level with the frame, so they're not sunken into the frame, because sometimes that can be a problem when it's on the wall. If the light is catching off the top of the frame here, it sometimes will cast a shadow, and I really don't like that on paintings. So I'm really happy that this worked out, and I had enough to be able to cut pieces for all of the paintings, at least the small ones. I'll have to keep looking for strips that are big enough for the large frame. Okay, so today is Friday, April 28th of 2023, and today is the day I've been preparing for all week. I'm really excited because it's super nice outside. It's not too hot, and sun is out, the flowers are blooming. We've only been living here for a few months, so it's been really fun to see what is coming up in the yard that was planted before we bought the house. And Lenny's been really good at just hanging out outside, napping on the patio. But anyway, yeah, so I'm launching. I'm sure by the time this video comes out, the paintings will be available for purchase on my website, acunhaarts.com. I'm almost done wiring the paintings and mounting them into the frames. I just pre-drilled all of the pilot holes in the backs of the frames. You can kind of see that here in this frame. I added a little bit of a glaze with titanium buff. It's sort of an off-white, I think it's like pre-bleached titanium, and it has a real warmth to it that brings out some of the ochre colors in the painting. So I chose to go with that to highlight some of these small organic moments in the frame. So anybody who purchases a painting will also receive one of these certificates of authenticity. This just accompanies the paintings and is a way to keep track of the provenance of the work. It also is a way to document, you know, the materials that were used to make the painting and price of the painting when it's sold. So all of that information will be on these cards. The other big thing that I have to do today is deliver the casein painting that I framed last week in the white frame to a gallery in Milwaukee, James May Gallery. They have an annual juried show called Art of Water, and that painting was accepted into the show, so I have to deliver it today by like 5 o'clock. And then after that, Megan and I might grab some dinner in the city and just kind of celebrate a long but very productive week. Everything's a mess. I have tools and materials all over the place, so this weekend I'll have to really clean things up, but I'm really pumped for how all of the paintings turned out. Everything is done and good to go. I can take these inside now and photograph all of them. This is the moment where it really feels like all this hard work has like reached the finish line. Okay, I just took all the photos for the listings. I like this area because Megan has this cool little shelf with some plants, and it's a good sized wall for the paintings that I just made. So all the photos were taken here, and I'm trying to be better about photographing the work where you get a better sense of the scale, and that little shelf was really helpful for that. So I have all of the paintings here, all ready to go, framed up. I'm so excited. They look so good. And yeah, I think maybe I'll show a few clips of the photos that I just took and just kind of like roll out the last little bit of the video here. And I just want to say thank you to everyone who has supported me and my work over the years. I'm going on year like 11 or 12 of painting, you know, pretty close to full time. You know, I've been a student and worked other jobs through those years too, but when I say full time, I just mean making time to paint every day. And I feel very fortunate that I get to do what I love most days. And you know, it means a lot that people like you are watching the journey and are here to support me along the way. So I hope you enjoyed this video too. And if you haven't subscribed to my channel, I hope you'll consider doing that. That's it for this little series of the April shop update with the first egg tempera paintings for sale. We'll see what happens. Thanks.